They got Willa. They got my daughter. I need to find her. Willa!
From acclaimed director Paul Thomas Anderson.
You can save that girl.
Today, experience what is being called the best movie of the year.
This is the end of the line.
Not for you.
Leonardo DiCaprio, Sean Penn, Benicio del Toro, Tiana Taylor, Chase Infinity.
Let's go!
One battle after another. Now playing only in theaters. Experience it in IMAX. Rated R. Under 17 animated without parent.
You can hide.
Finish training for the day? Time to fight post-workout fatigue with Core Power Protein Shakes. They're packed with 26 grams of high-quality protein to build muscle and electrolytes to help hydrate. The nutrition you need to help your body replenish, rebuild, and repair post-workout so you can power on to the next one. Champion your recovery with Core Power. Visit corepower.com to learn more.
Wish you could become a morning person? You know the type, up before the sun, early morning runs, first one to the office with donuts and a smile. How do they do it? Easy. With the new Galaxy Watch 8, sleep tracking and personalized insights from Samsung Health help you improve so you can wake up to a whole new you. One who, dare I say it, skips the snooze? It's possible. Train your sleep with Galaxy Watch 8. Learn more at Samsung.com. Requires compatible Samsung Galaxy phone, Samsung Health app, and Samsung account.
Hello everyone, I'm Chris Wynn and welcome to another How We're the podcast. And as you know, we can't get enough of talking about how great the lads are at the moment on How We're the podcast. And we've just beaten Nottingham Forest at the City Ground, and for 24 hours at least, we could say we occupied a Champions League spot, which isn't something we really expected to say 6 games into our return to the Premier League. So to speak about this today, we first have, after ending yesterday's pod with the nonsense that was instigated by a question that Andrew particularly liked, we have the familiar soothing voice of Gavin Henderson. Hello, Gav.
Hello, mate. Yes, it was a bit mad, that, wasn't it?
Yeah, got a bit chaotic at the end of that Q&A, mate. It seemed like you lost a bit of control of the lads towards the end.
Completely. Yeah, I was horrendous. I was a bit like Paolo Di Canio in his final days. I think the lads had lost all respect for us, and they were ready to cause mayhem. It was a bit mad.
Yeah. Andrew got all giddy at the end, but yeah, you managed to finish it in the end, which was good. But yeah. So also to join us today, we are lucky to have someone who, unlike me and Gav, knows his stuff. We are very pleased to welcome back Sky Sports presenter and, of course, massive Sunderland fan. It is, of course, Tom White. Hello, Tom.
Hello. We are actually still potentially in the Champions League places. 5th was good enough last season, and it could well be good enough this season. So we could still be in the Champions League places right now. So let's cling on to that.
Oh, I'll tell you what, you've just got us dreaming again, Tom. But it is weird because someone said the other week, Tom, that we're talking about obviously before the Forest game, them finishing 7th last season. Or was it 7th or 8th they finished last season? But it was 7th or 8th. And they obviously qualified for the Europa League. And then I was thinking back to the Reedies days when we finished 7th twice and didn't get in, but they were obviously taking part in the Europa League.
Wasn't that by choice though? Didn't we have the choice of the Intertoto? And Peter Reid wasn't keen. Forest actually qualified for the Europa Conference League, but as you know, with all that palaver with Palace, they ended up getting kind of promoted to the Europa League, and Palace demoted to the Europa Conference League. But yeah, Peter Reid chose not to go in the Intertoto to mess with our pre-season plans.
Yeah, well, I remember how giddy Scott Parker was when he lifted the Intertoto Cup. That famous picture of him looking overly joyed at that. But yeah,
Cup.
I mean,
Cup. Do you not mean certificate?
It was. I was going to say, yeah, it was a certificate that they won.
Well, it was called a cup. I don't know what it was. It was like a glass stupid thing, wasn't it? With just Intertoto Cup. But yeah, Scott Parker looked over the moon with winning that back in the day. But yeah, I mean, we were just talking before we started recording. We last spoke to you just before it all kicked off. But I just wanted to kind of go back a little bit because just about your insight looking into your crystal ball, because I remember during the summer that when we spoke to you, and this is going way back to June time, But I remember when everybody was going, we don't know who we're going to buy. And some people, well, our conversations were around who can we keep hold of. You were the only one who came out and said, I've got a little kind of inkling that we're going to break our transfer record multiple times. And you seem to have a bit more insight than most on that. But, I've heard you speak since, but you didn't quite expect us to go as big as we did, though. But you were the only one who said we're kind of going to go big.
Yeah, we signed more players than I thought. I thought we would spend big on 4, 5, maybe 6 players. Didn't realise we were going to spend big on as many as we did. I mean, Siddiqui cost a lot. Diarra was our record. Lafay had already come in for a lot of money. Alderete and Roofs, all those touch wood at the moment, they look like bargains. They weren't, free transfers or anything. Same with Mukiele, Getrauder, if I know that's a loan with the option to buy. So we definitely spent more than I expected, put it that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it's funny because the lads were talking the other day about our model on the pod the other day, Tom, and everyone's talking about this model. But, looking at what we've done, is it people are talking about using us as the blueprint and where maybe the new Brentford or the new Brighton, but is it quite a difficult one to replicate and quite a unique one? Because what the kind of hierarchy and Speakman and Louis Dreyfus have put in place is a long-term plan that actually wasn't just to be in the Premier League like your Brentfords and your Brightons. It actually took us up from League One with bringing in young players that could grow with us and get us there in the first place.
Yeah, if you need a quick fix, you change the manager. If you can afford yourself a long-term plan and really trust it, that's when you bring in all the people above stroke alongside the manager. Like we've had once Kirill Louis Dreyfus took over. He had a clear plan. He put people in place who were going to see this plan through as long as it took to get to the Premier League. And so, because I did hear you on your last podcast worried about losing some of the people around, like someone mentioned maybe losing Christian Speakman, etc., and other people like that. And I mean, Jazolf is only quite new to us, but somebody thinking, hey, Sunderland are being run well, let's take the people who are running that club. Well, that would have to be someone with a lot of foresight and patience, because if there's any club out there looking for a quick fix, you don't do that. You just change the manager. So in that regard, yes, it would be very hard to replicate, but it's very nice that people would like to replicate what we're doing, because I can't really remember a time when people have, other than when Peter Reid was bringing in bargains and they were doing well. Okay, fair enough, but everybody wants to do that. Copying our model, as it's called, it will be very hard to do, yes, but isn't it nice that people see us in the same level as what people have seen, particularly Brighton, over the last few years, because that's clearly been a successful model. So we're doing, I was going to say we're doing something right. We're doing a lot right at the moment.
Yeah. Gav, do you think it's something that people actually forget, because we'll look at the later years in the Championship, but actually this has been, I mean, you always hear owners talk about, right, I've got a 5-year plan to do this. And, it always just goes out the window and never quite happens. But this has been, we bought some of those young players in League One. And then that was able to take us all the way up, where, again, you're talking about the kind of financial aspect. It put us in a great position when we actually did get in the Premier League, that those players grew, got better with us, and were able to take us to the Premier League.
I suppose in a wicked way, it was one of the advantages of being in League One, wasn't it? And being able to completely rebuild. I mean, Tom mentioned there about how clubs looking to change direction might not necessarily look to the level of a Speakman or a Gasolfi because you want a quick fix. You do it in the season, you'll change your manager. When you're in League One and you're the size of Sunderland, yes, that's horrific. You don't want to be there. But after we had a few years to get our head around it, the club did things in the right way to make sure that we built not just for League One, but for the future. And you don't really get that time or that ability to do that the higher up the food chain you are. And I reckon this to what's going on at Forest right now. Mid-season, I mean, not even mid-season, 5 games into the season or whatever, 4 games into the season, they get rid of their manager. they completely changed tack by bringing in somebody who doesn't play that kind of football, and they're doing it while all the craziness is going on around them. Transfer window's already closed. They're in Europe. They're in cup competitions. They're trying to get going in the Premier League, all whilst bringing in a coach who wants to change the way they play. It's not that easy. You can't. Ordinarily, you would do that in pre-season if you were going to do it at all. And Sunderland in League One, we managed to put all of those things in place. And when you're talking about transfers, that comes into it, because we sold the likes of, I wouldn't even include Trey Hume in this. I think Trey Hume, if I remember rightly, when he signed for Sunderland, we were actually competing with Lincoln to sign him. And imagine Trey Hume went to Lincoln instead of Sunderland. But I'm talking more about your likes of Dan Neil, who could have quite easily left the club and gone on, like a lot of people his age did, and gone on and signed for Premier League clubs and made up part of their academy sides. He chose to stay with Sunderland. Dennis Serkin, we managed to convince Tottenham to let him go, and we managed to convince him to come to the club, and Serkin's still part of the squad. O'Nien built with the club, probably could have left at various points because he was proving himself in League One. And there are others, Jack Clark, we managed to get in League One. Ross Stewart, the list goes on and on. We almost sold everybody the project before the project was really in motion. And that's one of the most pleasing aspects of all of this, is that we've still got lads along on the journey who, like Trey Hume, like Dan Neil, were there when it all started.
Yeah. And you, obviously, we've had a transfer deadline day since we last talked to you, Tom, and you might be able to offer a bit more insight into this, because I found one of the most impressive aspects of the window. I mean, don't get us wrong, there was lots of them, 170 million quid's worth of them, I think. But, on that transfer deadline day, obviously we had the whole, which might have panicked a few clubs, because Chelsea came in and said, right, we want Mark Guéhiou back. And, within 24 hours, he'd gone back, and Brian Broby and Bertrand Traoré came in from Ajax. And, who knows, we might have signed them anyway. But to quickly react as we did so late in the day was pretty impressive. And, just on that single 24 hours, I mean, it's normally chaotic, but it seemed like we did well to let one go or negotiate that and get two in.
Yeah, and it's another thing, it's another positive about the structure that we've got, is that we were obviously ready. We were obviously ready to go. We got to deadline day, and we will have had a list of targets. We will have had a shortlist. And I don't know what number on that shortlist Broby was, but we obviously decided we needed a striker, whether we had Mark Guéhiou or not. I don't know whether we only bought Broby because we lost Guéhiou. I don't know that. But we obviously turned out we needed a striker. Broby could have been fifth on a 6-man shortlist. We might have waited so long to spend money on a striker because he was our number one choice. We had to wait until deadline day. But it's to do with the structure and the scouting that we've got in place, that it got to deadline day, we were able to get those deals done, and we were just ready to go. We were ready to get Broby. I heard Christian Speakman say that Traoré came up last minute. We didn't know he was available, then suddenly he was available for like 2.5 million or something. So that was more of a bonus signing. And I knew we were always looking for a defender, so that's where Geertruida came in. And by the way, I still don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I'm yet to have
don't come to us for
clarification what that is.
pronunciations, Tom.
So
don't come to us for those pronunciations.
That's the wrong lads here.
But don't take my word for it either. Believe it or not, I should know, but I don't know. And I knew we were looking for a defender. Were we waiting for him? Probably. But like you say, we were ready to go. We got some early business done. Then we ramped it up a bit before the season started, and it went a bit quiet as we waited for deadline day and to get those in. And I'm sure they will play a very big part.
Yeah. Gav, just on the point, because you talked about it in the pod and Tom mentioned earlier, and we're talking about the high profile people like Christian Speakman and Gasolfi and people like that potentially being on people's radars. But I don't know about you, and it's one thing I kind of was waiting for you to mention on the pod, but people below that, like Stuart Harvey and his team, I think go under the radar in terms of when you're saying names. But I think I might be more concerned about those people getting poached away for, with clubs having big pockets and offering them big contracts and all this sort of stuff. So you hope that team behind the big names, the Gasolfi and the Speakmans at the club, are in place and, are settled enough to be that team for quite some time? Because we've said for so long that we've got so much confidence in us getting it right in the windows.
Stuart Harvey doesn't go under the radar from me, by the way. Not at all. He's, I've said it on this podcast and others. Absolutely love him. Most hardworking man in football. And as far as I'm concerned, he's an absolute genius. So he doesn't go under my radar.
You've got to hope, Chris, that unlike, it's just not the given thing in football to treat employees well. Do you understand what I mean by that? Like, generally, when you look back and you see the way some people in football are treated in terms of they just get rid of them at the drop of a hat and there's no warning. And you've got to hope that this new Sunderland, this forward-thinking Sunderland, this business-minded version of Sunderland is actually run like a proper company, like a family business. Like, employees are made to feel valued and wanted and well looked after. And that job satisfaction trumps quite a lot of things. I mean, it would be very difficult for Christian Speakman to turn down the Real Madrid director of football job, for instance. I'm not saying he's going to get it, but, there are certain jobs out there which I think would be too difficult to turn down. But even for Stuart Harvey, you'd like to think he feels valued at Sunderland and he feels like he has a lot of input and he feels like he has a lot of control over his department and that he might not necessarily get that elsewhere. And that's what I'm clinging on to. I accept we've got some very, very impressive people in the football club right now. But are they necessarily going to get that same level of control and that same level of just being able to be themselves and the best version of themselves in their job if they went somewhere else? And there's been countless examples in recent years of, I mean, the one I always use is Dan Ashworth, somebody who, was valued at the club he was at, went to Newcastle, went to Manchester United, and it just hasn't worked for him at either of those clubs. And yeah, they might be perceived bigger jobs, but he had everything at one place, and now all of a sudden he just didn't have the control he wanted out of Manchester United, didn't have the control he wanted out of Newcastle. For hope, you've just got to hope that for these people, Sunderland is a bigger job than it probably looks like from the outside, and they would like to stay a lot longer than we maybe think that they possibly could.
Yeah, it was interesting to hear your reaction there, Tom, because clearly he's got a good reputation in the game. And, that does what Gav says make sense? I mean, can football clubs be like that? Because it is a cutthroat business. And if one of these people got a contract that could change their life somewhere else, then it's likelihood, what loyalty would they actually have to the football club?
Well, as pretty much every guest I ever have on Sky Sports News will say at some point, there is no loyalty in football. They always say if a club wants to drop you, they'll drop you. If a player or manager wants to leave because of whatever reason, they will go. But what Gav's saying does make sense. If you've got all the control that you want, if you've got whatever job satisfaction you've got, you're fine. But ultimately, in any walk of life, if someone comes in with more money, or not just that, because that's a little bit cynical, with an offer that is more attractive for whatever reason, then you might be tempted to go. But it would be, I think the current setup there is very, very good. And let's hope that they are happy where they are. And I would also say that they're not, I would very much doubt that they're getting paid minimum wage. I think they're probably well looked after. But you look at someone, I mean, like I don't know how much you bother following his career, but you look at what Lee Congerton's gone on to do. Lee Congerton's just finished in Saudi Arabia, having won whatever the equivalent of the Champions League is out there, having also been at Celtic and was doing a very good job at Leicester, by the way, until COVID came, and given that the Leicester owners' money all came in duty free and no one was allowed to fly, there was no money to spend at Leicester anymore, and it was a significantly tougher job for him. But he was not wanted by Sunderland. He was binned by Sunderland and then has gone on to have an incredible career. So you might think, at the time, probably thought, oh, well, if he's not wanted at Sunderland, he's probably not very good. But believe me, he was very, very good. and he's gone on to do incredible things. And I don't know what his next move will be, but he's done very well out in Saudi, and come back. See, given that it was Saudi, I've got no idea what's in his bank balance, but I've got a feeling that he's come back a significantly richer man, as well as having the satisfaction of putting a Champions League title, or whatever it's called, in Saudi Arabia on his CV as well. And all his titles at Celtic, because they won everything when he was there.
Yeah, he'll have done all right after a year at Saudi. But just talking about some of those guests, Tom, that you had on Sky Sports, and I watched a few of those things just leading up to the build-up to the start of the season, and pretty much every one of them said Sunderland, in terms of their first club, who were going to go down. But it was quite a strange thing, because this didn't change throughout the summer. And to be fair, you showed how good you were at your job to move on from that conversation professionally, because I think, to a lot of Sunderland fans, it felt like nobody was really looking at who we were signing, and they just made their minds up purely on the fact we got promoted to the playoffs.
Yes, that is true, but there is reason for that. It's one reason is, as you know, the last 2 seasons, the 3 promoted clubs have gone up and gone back down, and everyone assumes that the gap is so big that it's unbridgeable. That might be a bit lazy, but it's also understandable to think like that. It's also understandable to think that of Sunderland being in the Premier League, we were in a relegation battle for a lot of seasons before we eventually went. We went down under Moyes, but we just stayed up under Allardyce, just stayed up under Advocat, Poyet, Di Canio. It was only really the season before that with Martin O'Neill that we stayed up comfortably. And we'd had a bad start to that season. So everyone sees Sunderland as Premier League strugglers. So again, that's probably lazy, but also understandable. There were a few people who were willing to say that they thought that Sunderland would stay up, in fairness, and they could see how hard we were trying in the transfer market, but also alongside that, there were a lot of people saying writing Brentford off, and to a certain extent West Ham, and thinking, well, that's 2 clubs who could go down. Oh, and Wolves. This was before the start of the season. You think, well, there's 3 clubs that could go down. Of the promoted clubs, who's going to stay up instead? Well, Sunderland have spent a lot of money, and I noticed a lot of people changed their minds when Xhaka signed as well. That was when we showed we meant business. So there were a few people actually saying that Sunderland would be okay, but it wasn't. It took a while. It took until the Xhaka signing, and also the kind of failings in the transfer market of other clubs potentially around us as well.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Are your business expenses playing hide and seek? With Uber for Business, the small spends that slip through the cracks, like rides and meals, go right where you need them. Because it integrates with leading expense platforms, you can say goodbye to surprise costs, missing dollars, or chasing receipts. Everything's track downable. Uber for Business. Make small steps that make a big impact. Learn more at uber.com/small steps.
This episode is brought to you by Nature's Bounty. Nature's Bounty believes your body is brilliant, naturally designed to thrive, inside and out. For those always looking for new ways to support your health from head to heels, Nature's Bounty has a range of over 400 vitamins and supplements born from 50 years of trust and care. Nature's Bounty. It's in your nature. Visit naturesbounty.com to learn more.
I don't know about you, Gav, but I don't mind at all. Even where we are now, I'd prefer people keep writing us off.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, let them keep talking us down. It's happened every time we've picked up a good result. It's been happening since the weekend. You beat Forest, and people are making excuses and saying reasons why we should have beat them, rather than saying, actually, fair play, Sunderland. You picked up a really good result on the road away to a tough team. It's all been, oh, well, they're going through managerial change. They played in Europe in midweek. They haven't quite got to grips with the way the manager's playing. You should be beating them, really. You've had an easy start of the season. It's like, hang on. Same people were telling us that the Premier League was going to be a chasm that we couldn't overcome and that we would struggle and we would finish with record low points and we'd, and all this crap that we heard over the summer. The same people are now telling us that we should have won these games or we've had an easy start. And I just think, well, whatever. Just keep writing us off. You're going to keep getting proven wrong. I actually think that this group probably quite enjoy that. That's the tone going on right now. I don't know what the bookies are saying right now. I would have to check. But when we did the Q&A pod last week, we were still being tipped to finish in the bottom 3 by the bookies. I don't know what the crack is now, whether it's changed since Forest. Long may that continue. I'm over the moon to be written off. I think those are the conditions in which your team thrives. You hear about it all the time, don't you? When a reporter would say something dodgy in the papers, or an opposition manager would say something dodgy, and it would be in the next day's newspaper. And all the manager would do was go into the dressing room and slap it up on the wall, and that would be the team talk. Well, it's very similar with all of this, isn't it? Just keep on writing us off, and we'll keep proving you wrong.
Yeah.
4th favourites to go down now. It's got Burnley, Wolves, West Ham, then it's us. I've just looked it up, and then Leeds.
Oh, well.
And then there's actually quite a big jump to Brentford, so they've decided that the bottom 5 could be cut adrift. Burnley, Wolves, West Ham, Sunderland, Leeds.
All right. Well, again, we'll have to prove them wrong and not finishing that bottom 5. But yeah, when we got underway with that West Ham game, Tom, it was obviously important. We got off to a good start, but you've got to give credit to the club for realising how big that a moment that was and build up the atmosphere before the game, like they did against Coventry. They set up the T4. But it's good that the club realised that these are huge moments and to try and set the tone for the season ahead.
Yeah, it was brilliant, kind of spine tingling. That, by the way, I will admit, someone had to tell me what that tifo was. I was thinking, what on earth is that? And then when someone told me, okay, I understand now. But but it was brilliant, and the club did everything they could to get the fans even more up for the playoffs, and they didn't just stop it there. They didn't just end it there till the end. They didn't just end it there. They said, okay, well, we're up now. Maybe it's now the hard work starts. We need to do it again. And it was an amazing atmosphere. It was absolutely brilliant. I was very, very happy to be there myself. And it set the tone for the whole season because the feel-good factor has continued. I mean, yes, it helped that we won. We won 3-0. And what I've always said is that in the Premier League, you've got to aim to get a point a game if you're just trying to stay up. And that was first game in, 3 points from one game. You're already ahead of the curve after one game. And now, after 6 games, we're 5 points ahead of it. We could lose the next 5 games and still be, by my own calculations, by my own predictions, okay to stay up. Hope we don't lose the next 5 games, of course. But it has continued all the way through. And we didn't really get too down when we lost away at Burnley. Didn't get too down at all. I think that we might have started worry a little bit had we not got something at Brentford. But we managed to turn that game around and again, just stay ahead of the points tally the whole way through. And if we do that all season, we will be fine.
Yeah. I mean, Gav, it's something that it's worth kind of pointing out, isn't it? Because people are quick enough to jump on the club when they get something wrong. But sometimes it feels like people begrudge the club any sort of credit when they pull out all the stops and they realise that West Ham moment was so big in setting us up for the season ahead that if we got off to, as Tom said, got off and got 3 points, that they built it up so much that almost, talking about the 12th man, I mean, West Ham were up against it because of the atmosphere.
Yeah, and I actually think it starts a lot earlier than that when we started recruiting very early in the window. And I think that was talked about quite a lot at the time, was that the club must have seen the fixtures and gone, whatever we do, we need to make sure that by the time we get to the start of the season, we aren't still trying to fill key positions. We need to be ready. And then you saw all the business we did early in the window. We got Diarra and we got Siddiqui and we got Talbi, Adingra, Xhaka in early, which meant that they had that settling in period. And it meant that we didn't waste that opportunity against West Ham. It was like, we didn't toss it off and go, oh, well, it's the first game of the season. What, maybe. No. We had to be at our peak and ready, and we had to have a team that was going to go out there and trample all over West Ham and get 3 points. And that's exactly what we did. And I think it's been the attitude right the way through, even to this point. Not just attitude, but there's a feeling that we are trying to find those advantages that other clubs maybe don't. And one of those is just being prepared. We're so organised in every aspect, on and off the pitch. And ultimately, you do all of these things. I mean, we've had the news today, haven't we, about this performance team. The club have announced that we've hired a bunch of performance staff to increase the size of that team. We've got more specialists in various areas. And you do all of these things, ultimately, to get 3 points on a Saturday. All of these things, the transfer business, the appointments behind the scenes, all these little things, they all come together on a Saturday when you play a game of football. And yeah, you're right. The credit has to be appropriated, really. We give a lot of credit to the team and the manager, and rightly so. But it's the people off the pitch that set those wheels in motion and give us that opportunity and give the manager and the players the best opportunity to go out there on a Saturday and be able to get the results we need.
And in terms of being prepared on the pitch, that showed when we went down to 10 men and we knew what to do. They knew exactly what to do, and Niall Quinn said this, told this tale many times. Under Peter Reid, he actually always credits Bobby Saxton for it rather than Peter Reid. He said, when we went down to 10 men, he says that he thinks they only lost once with 10 men because they knew exactly what to do, what the plan was with 10 men. And Poyet was the same. Charlie Oakway said that Gus Poyet would have a plan for going down to 10 men and even going down for 9 men. We went down to 10 men against Villa. It was obvious that we knew every player knew exactly what he was doing, even though they weren't to know who was going to be sent off in training. Everybody knew their jobs. And that shows that I know we're talking about all the stuff off the pitch, which is really helping. But in terms of being prepared for anything, on the pitch we are too.
Well, just another aspect of that working together, Tom, because it was obvious from that West Ham game straight away that these new signings, who'd only been in a matter of weeks, were making sliding tackles and then pumping their fists to the fans. And it did feel like when they'd signed, they'd been given this education about, right, Sunderland are this type of club. And if you want them to respond, this is what you'll get back from them. But there seemed to be an education about the club and about the ethos and what they were kind of supposed to do, because from new signings, it seems like they were going a level beyond what you normally see.
Yeah, it looks like that is the case. It looks like they either already knew what they were signing up for, or it was more likely it was drilled into them. But remember that that can only go so far, because when we played Newcastle in the FA Cup, I know that there were video clips being shown of previous derby wins and looking at the reaction from the fans and how players are loved. I mean, no one ever forgets Fabio Borini for scoring the winner that day. He scored a couple against them, but the one at the Stadium of Light when Altidore set it up in the 2-1 and Gus Poyet's second game. And I know that was being drummed into the players so that they knew how much this derby meant. And we didn't even turn up that day. We went for a 0-0 from the minute of the first kickoff. So what you're saying there, it helps, but everything has to come together as well. But I do agree with you. I think they've probably been given some sort of education, if not educated themselves on the type. It's not just the club, by the way, it's the people around the city, around the region. What are they going to react to? What are they going to, what makes you a hero in these parts on that football pitch? And it's the same traits that you get of the people from Sunderland and people from the Northeast. It is hard work, grit and determination. That's what we're known for. And if you replicate that on the pitch, you can be a hero. You can be a hero forever.
Yeah. Well, just going back to those performances that we've seen so far, Tom, and we'll look at the first 3 games and, they could have, in theory, went either way based on, incidents in the game. You had Jared Bourne having chances early on for West Ham. we had chances at Burnley, we could have nicked that. There was a disallowed goal and a saved penalty at Brentford. So these games were kind of ebbing and flowing, that they could have went either way. But what have you made of like those performances early on and then progressing after that into Palace, Villa and Nottingham Forest? Do you feel like this team feels like it's progressing with every game?
Yes. There were games that could have gone either way under Mick McCarthy and ended up with 15 points in the Premier League. What he always used to say is, we were in the game. We were in the game. There was one goal in it. We could have got something at the end, that kind of thing. But nothing did go for us this time. Whereas this time, I actually think that if there's a lookometer, I think we're probably just ahead of the other clubs on that we've been playing so far. But we definitely look better because I think so far, I think the West Ham game we did deserve it. I think Burnley and Brentford games were quite similar. If we'd drawn them both, we couldn't have complained, but we won one and lost one. That's 3 points, not 2, so an extra point. But I certainly think the performance against Palace and then more so against Forest were proof that we really have settled at this level. We can't forget that we haven't played any of the title-chasing teams. We can't forget that. We can't pretend that these results have come against the likes of Man City and Arsenal and Liverpool because they haven't. But still, away at Palace, no one beats Palace, and that 0-0, good result. Villa was with 10 men, like I said, how organised we were with 10 men, and then Forest away. That was a brilliant win, absolute brilliant win. I was there, and it's very strange for me to feel quite calm during a game. I'm not saying that I was thinking there's no way they're getting back into this, but I did actually feel quite comfortable and quite trusting of the players on the pitch. So we have progressed. We are looking better, but there are going to be harder times around the corner. I really wish there wasn't, but I can assure you there will be harder times around the corner, and there will be times when we might worry a little bit this season. But at the moment, we are well ahead of that 1 point per game, and as long as we stay ahead of it, we won't go down.
Yeah. And Gav, do you think, looking at those games we were just talking about there, do you almost think you could look at it in terms of pre-international break and post-international break? Because those three, the opening 3 games, could have went either way, and we got 6 points, which was fantastic. But then it seemed like, I reckon, after the international break, I think we've looked a lot more assured and solid after that break.
Yeah. And I think that's just a result of the players bedding in, probably. I said I give them credit for getting them in as early as possible, but you can't replicate what happens over 90 minutes in the Premier League on the training ground. You've got to go out there and play games and develop relationships and go through difficult periods in games together and come out the other end. You've all of those things you cannot replicate until you're out on the pitch in a Premier League game. So every game's presented a different challenge, and I know that sounds obvious to say, but it's true. Every game's been very different. We had the Villa game and the fact that we went out to 10 men so early, and my feeling straight away in the stands was just a feeling of dread and anger at what Ronaldo did. But that was a challenge we more than overcame, and that gives you belief. And then you go into the Forest game and you're thinking, well, if we can play like that with 10 men against Aston Villa, what can we do to this lot? And we went there, and I think every game has just helped us get more and more organised as a unit. And we've had a little bit of fortune with the way the games have fell in the sense of who we've played, not because they're poor teams or anything. Just I think the way we play, it suited ourselves in against who we're playing. So next week, for instance, or at the weekend, we play Manchester United, and I'm talking about Sunderland looking more and more organised and motivated and growing in self-belief. The team we're playing against, they're the complete opposite. They've got no self-belief. They've got no organisation. They've got a style of football which doesn't suit them, and the players aren't responding to the manager. And there's talk of Amarin being on his last legs as manager there. and you're almost looking at it and going, what an opportunity we've got to go there and prove ourselves again. So I'm startled by how it's kind of fell for us, really. You know, every game with each challenge they've presented have given us that little bit extra going into the next game. And I hope we don't land flat on our faces, because this just feels like a great opportunity, doesn't it? Can you imagine we come away with 3 points from Old Trafford, what that'll do for the mood, if it's not already good enough?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Tom, you talked about watching us at Forest and having that organisation, and you know that you talk about the games that we've been under pressure. I think against Villa and Forest, we had about 30% possession, and it's some achievement that we've only conceded 4 in 6. I think only Arsenal and Palace have conceded fewer this season. When you throw into the fact, you mentioned the Burnley game, but we're 4 unbeaten since we lost our first game. I mean, you've got to think about that, because we haven't been fantastic going forward, and it's all been about that structure and that organisation that we've got. That, to be fair, has come from the manager, and it's come across from last season in that system that he likes to play.
Yeah, I mean, things like having less possession, I've never ever been bothered about it, to be honest. I don't like it when I see that we haven't had a shot on target all game, and that is something that I would like to see us work on, even if it's just long range efforts, because you never know what could happen, especially when you've got like Xhaka, Lafay. It looks like Diarra can really hit them, although he's obviously out for a little while. Yes. Yeah. I tell you something that some real credit that needs to be given is how quickly it has taken to get that organisation. Because when a new manager comes into a team, now not that we've got a new manager, but we have got a new team in a new division. It can say, it takes a long time to gel. It takes a long time to get his ideas across. Regis Lebris got his ideas across quite quickly in the Championship, but it's a different team now. There's not many who start the game who were still here last season. And we've got that organisation early. And that deserves a lot of credit. And we will know exactly what our plan is against Manchester United, because we know exactly what formation and system and style they're going to play. It's easy to say, every club knows how to play against them. Now, it's not as easy as that, all right? Because everyone used to know how Manchester United would play under Sir Alex Ferguson, but no one could stop them. No one could stop Arsenal and peak days under Wenger. And everyone knew how they were going to play. So it's not as easy as that, but I see your point. I mean, it is certainly in my lifetime, in all of our lifetimes, we do go to Old Trafford with more of a chance than we've ever had, and with less pressure than we've ever had. It's not like the day when it was it Larson who scored under Poyet and we won 1-0? Wickham crossed it for Larson, wasn't it? I was thinking it might be the other way round. We went there thinking no pressure because we're definitely going down, right? And we got a win, and we stayed up. This time we go no pressure because we've got so many points on the board at the moment, and because Manchester United aren't what they once were. But I know when Gav says, imagine if we got a win, I mean, it would be delirium. But if it's 0-0, I will be delighted, absolutely delighted if it's a draw.
Yeah, well, twice we beat them twice since 1968. So let's not get carried away. But
is that what it is at Old Trafford?
Yeah.
Twice. Oh God. Yeah. Well, I've said it. My son's been to 10 games with me, all in the Championship. 9. This will be his 10th. He's never ever seen us win. Imagine if his first win is. Imagine if his first wins at Old Trafford. Can you imagine that?
Records are there to be broken, aren't they? So
well, exactly.
You know, well, is this a big one as well, Tom? To see where we are, because we've had a lot of finger pointing about the points that we've got, saying, "Well, look who you've played." But you know, you could argue that our Forest, our Palace, almost in a better place than Man United. But is this a game where we can put a statement down almost?
Well, Palace are brilliant, by the way. Palace I think people underestimated them. But if we beat Manchester United, people won't say, God, Sunderland were brilliant. They will say this Manchester United side are poor, and they'll probably say the players aren't playing for the manager. I've not heard that that's true, by the way, the players aren't playing for the manager. But it will still be, I can assure you that away from Wearside, the story will be Manchester United, not Sunderland. But like we said at the start, going under the radar suits us, but I'm not sure that Manchester United is the marker that we're really looking at anymore.
For a limited time at McDonald's, get a Big Mac extra value meal for $8. That means 2 all-beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun, and medium fries, and a drink. We may need to change that jingle.
Prices and participation may vary.
It is funny, isn't it, Gav, that, the Forest game was because it was Ange was settling in. The Palace game was because Guiu, had problems away with England. Villa, they hadn't scored, and Emery's having problems. But you've got to remember as well, we went to the City ground without Ronaldo, without Diarra.
Yeah.
That, huge players that have played this season. You could argue 2 standout performers in those early games weren't with us at Nottingham Forest, and we went and we still got all 3 points.
The two, because you've always got to bet without the favourite, without Granit Xhaka, when it comes to the signings who've really stood out. But Reynaldo had really stood out for me as a brilliant signing, which, by the way, it's my understanding that was Stuart Harvey's signing, by the way, Reynaldo. By the way, he also was trying to push for Siddiqui in the Championship. Imagine him in the Championship. Flipping heck. I mean, look at him in the Premier League, let alone in the Championship. And Diarra has also impressed me. I do worry that he's not going to score many goals, but in fairness, he's replaced Bellingham, who most of his goals when he was a makeshift striker, and also we're a league above. So maybe we probably need to look at the front 3 for the goals rather than Diarra. But he's certainly not scared to shoot, and that's something. But yeah, those 2 have really impressed me, and we did go there without them. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And Masuaku hadn't started in the league for us. And he's a very different type of left-back than Reynaldo. And Diarra was replaced by a youngster in Chris Rigg with very few Premier League minutes under his belt, and the best years are ahead of him. And they both knew their jobs, and it goes back to the organisation. They knew every player that goes into that team, they know their jobs. They don't need to take time to get acclimatised to it. You're playing in that position with these players around you. This is your job, and they all know what they're doing. And that is incredible after just 6 games in a new league with a whole new team.
Yeah.
Just to go back to your question there, Chris, the whole narrative leading into this, you know exactly what it's going to be. Like I said, Amorim looks to be on his last legs, and people are really running out of patience there with him. And I don't mind that at all. Again, and do you know what it is? You listed off all these problems other clubs have been having and stuff. And it kind of does remind you, because we were out of the Premier League for that long, we did over the summer and probably in that little period between the playoff final and the transfer season starting to start, we probably did get stuck in this bubble, and we did see Premier League teams on this pedestal of being just unbeatable, and that being a status we would really struggle to attain to have despite getting promoted. You focus so much on the fact that promoted teams have gone down on all 6 occasions in the last 2 years. All 6 promoted sides have gone straight back down. You focus on all these things, and you kind of forget that all these clubs have got their own problems. They've all got their own issues. It doesn't matter how good some of these squads are. If the manager's not getting a tune out of them, they're not going to show that quality in the way that they probably want to. And the same goes for Manchester United. You're going to look at that team at the weekend. I don't know if Ahmad's fit, but he'll probably play. There's a player we're very familiar with. He's playing right wing back. He's not a right wing back. He's probably doing a decent job there.
The last couple of games he's played, they have pushed him up to one of the number 10 positions. Yeah. But sadly for him, it hasn't actually worked. I think he only missed the last game due to family bereavement. I don't think he was injured.
Right. Okay.
So
yeah,
I
that's
think
right. Yeah.
But I think that their plan, Manchester United's plan at the start of the season, was they're never going to change the formation, but they think that they can put a winger at wing back like Diallo because they're expecting to be on the front foot. Whereas against a team like Manchester City, they put Diallo in as a number 10 further forward and played a fullback as a wing back. So I think they'll be so desperate to get a full 3 points against us. I think Diallo will play right wing back against us.
Yeah. And just on that sort of team shape, Lebris, we know how talented he is and we know how detailed he is. And we know how they're going to play. I think he'll have had his game plan for Man United written yonks ago. I think he'll be really, really up for this. Like, he is up for every game, isn't he? You know how much he loves doing his job. But he's gonna be looking at this as a chance to get 3 points. And I think we've heard that from the players. I mentioned it the other day on a pod. Nordy Mukiele after the game, I think was he asked by somebody at Sky about a relegation battle, and he said, we're not talking about that, we're just talking about winning the next game. And honestly, I think that's the attitude. I don't think they're looking at the bigger picture necessarily. They're looking at the next match and the next chance to get 3 points. And we will not go into this game with fear. There will not be a single player on that pitch scared of playing at Old Trafford, scared of playing against Man U. And isn't that an indictment of where Man U are at right now? Because for the majority of my life, they were the most feared team in the world. I can remember watching as a kid, sitting down with my dad in front of the telly, watching the Champions League on ITV, and watching that team of invincible players where I used to just watch them and think, they're like a bunch of gods. Nobody can beat them. That was the kind of feeling they gave off. This team full of superstars, Beckham and Scholes and Giggs and Button and Keane and Cole and York. You know, they were just an unbelievable team. This isn't the same Manchester United. Brentford have just battered them, absolutely battered them. So why would we fear them? We've got nothing to fear.
Yeah. Well, I mean, looking at the next two, Tom, you know, we've got teams with issues coming up, Manchester United and then Wolves. And the way we're playing, as Gav said, you know, we're not sounding stupid with the way we're playing if we say, actually, why can't we get 6 points out of those two games?
Yeah, I am. Everyone always says I'm the most pessimistic Sunderland fan ever, and I always say no, I'm the most realistic Sunderland fan ever. And as much as we are all loving it right now, we might be asking a little bit too much. But I really hope that I'm wrong. Wolves at home is one that we would have been targeting at the start of a season for 3 points. But they are certainly starting to show signs of improvement. Manchester United away, again, they do still have good players. They've got problems, but they do still have very good players. And on a separate note about the likes of Wolves, West Ham, Forest, maybe a few others in there, they will have better second half of the season because no doubt in my mind whatsoever, they were complacent over the summer. They felt, like we talked about, some lazy predictions that the three promoter clubs will go straight back down. I think a lot of the owners and directors of football and chief executives will have thought the same thing at clubs and have had quite frugal summer transfer windows, making money rather than spending money because they think it's pretty much a closed shop. We're staying up anyway. We don't need to spend money. They're getting a bit of a dose of reality when they've seen how actually all three promoter clubs are having a go and fighting, that they, in January, I think they will throw money at it to try to stay up. And as long as they spend the money well, which isn't a guarantee, but as long as they spend the money well, they should have better second half of the season. So we absolutely cannot get complacent. But yes, I would take 6 points in the next two games, thanks.
But just on that, what you were saying there, we talked back way back in the summer that it was important for the Premier League that the newly promoted sides at least made a good go of it. But do you think, actually looking at Leeds and Sunderland, do you think we've ruffled a few feathers and got a few teams worrying about how this season might play out?
I think Burnley as well. I think people have been impressed with Burnley, and they did beat us as well. Remember, I think maybe all three of us have. I think it's rather than ruffled feathers maybe, but I think just a bit of a wake up call to a few clubs. Oh, actually, this season might not be like the last couple of seasons. And in terms of having, it sounds a bit harsh on Burnley, but in terms of having Sunderland and Leeds in the Premier League, they are in historically, surely, and in terms of historically, and in terms of the size of the club in every way you want to judge it, Leeds and Sunderland should be in the Premier League. And I can guarantee that the producers at Sky and on TNT of the Premier League are delighted that Sunderland and Leeds are back in there because viewing figures are sky high for those two clubs. Sky high. Whereas the producers in the EFL at Sky, and also I think some of it's on ITV as well, they're devastated because again, all those viewing figures you used to get from Sunderland and Leeds have gone, and they've come to the Premier League. They already have the big viewing figures, but you deserve to be in the Premier League if you get enough points to stay up. But I think historically, when you think of the 20 biggest clubs in England, I think the Sunderland and Leeds definitely deserve to be there. There might be an argument for Burnley as well, but I think it's a good thing that we're there. And for the Premier League as a whole, you need at least one of the 3 promoted clubs to stay up. Otherwise, it maybe does become a closed shop and not really very fun.
Yeah, go on then, Gav, because you're always glass half full. We've got Man United, Wolves next 2 games.
He thinks we get 7 points from them.
but I mean, looking at, as I said, looking at the way we're playing, and that maybe I might be kind of over egging it at Man United, but certainly you can say, well, the way we're playing, why not say, right, well, let's target 6, and if we get 4, that's still kind of almost overachieving at this point.
Yeah, well, your question to Tom was, why can't we? And there is no reason why we can't. I think the start that we've had has, I'm not saying it's given us room to be complacent, more so it's given us a bit of breathing space, and it's took a little bit of pressure off. I mean, obviously, the attitude is we've got to just keep going. We do not stop. We do not let other teams breathe. We've got to just keep picking up points relentlessly, which I think is a fantastic attitude to have. But to be sat here after 6 games with 11 points, we're now in a position where we can look at Man U away and go, let's just go there and do it. We've got no pressure on us, none whatsoever. All the pressure is on Man United, all of it. Because, like I said, if they, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but they've just lost 3-1 to Brentford. If they concede 2 or 3 goals to us, he'll get sacked. I feel it's got to that point there where, his luck's ran out, and there will be a point where enough is enough with Amorim. That's how close to the edge he is, So we know all of this. We can go there without fear, and we can impose ourselves. And it's like I said before, I can't believe I'm even saying that we're going to go to Old Trafford and potentially do that. But there's no reason why we can't. And then, not trying to look too far ahead, but obviously the Wolves game after the international break, if we get a really good result at Old Trafford and we win, and like I say, I think we can do it, we then have a break and time to reflect a little bit, and then we have a home game against a struggling team. Now, a home game for us at the minute feels like a cup final. Every single game has been a big occasion, sold out, great atmosphere, players really respond to that. And I said this after the last home game, the Villa game. I said there's going to be teams looking at this and going, I don't fancy going up there to Sunderland, because it's not a nice place to play at the minute. And you can only imagine if we get a good result at Old Trafford, we're still sat in a brilliant position in the table. We have a break. We then come back. Everyone's buzzing to be back at the stadium after 4 weeks. It's going to have that feel of a big game again. And if you're a struggling team going away from home, that is not a place you want to be. So I'm not writing off 6 points. I'm really not, because I just think this is a proper opportunity, and the feeling you get at the minute is that we're not prepared to waste chances like this. This attitude of this team is completely different to what I thought it was going to be this season. But it's that Sunderland fan that I am, and there's that thing within us that also admits, there's a possibility we lose both games and we're brought back down to earth. It's always there, isn't it? So, but I am optimistic, actually. I'm really optimistic. I've just got a feeling we're going to get a really good result at Old Trafford. And as Tom said, a really good result would be a point. I'd be over the moon with a point. Point on the road is a great result. Doesn't matter who it's against.
Yeah, it is. Always. You're right there. I am looking forward to going, I must say. I'm not dreading it. I'm looking forward to it. But that's because we've got points on the board. And I've got a good run of them, actually. I went to Forest. I'm going to Man U. I've got Chelsea and Fulham away coming up, as well as Brighton away and Newcastle at home, obviously. I think I'm missing one out there. Leeds at home as well. I might be missing one there, but I've got a good run of them, and I must say I am really enjoying it. And the mood in the kind of concourse and stuff, pre-match and at half-time is absolutely brilliant. And post-match, if you stay over, like in Nottingham at the weekend, I think I must have bought about 200 cans of Blue Wicked in Pop World. I'm surprised it didn't turn blue. So the mood is very good post-match as well.
Yeah. Well, final words, Tom, because look, we're quarter of a way to safety with 11 points. But do you reckon if we get a couple more results, we might start to dream bigger and Gav's going to check his passport out, or do we keep our eyes on the 40-point mark?
Well, but my eyes have always been on the 38-point mark, so I haven't even. I don't even. My aims are a lot lower than yours. My aims are very much on keeping above a point a game. That's what my aims. But if we do go on like a great run, like let's say we did get 6 points in the next 2 games, which I mean, absolutely no chance in my opinion. But let's say we did, that's 3 wins in a row. Then we might start to think a bit. I might start, to think a bit bigger.
Yeah. Can I just say, by the way, 40 points, as we have proven in the past, might not be enough.
Yes,
so
I know.
I think we should be going higher than that.
I know, and I have just said how the teams around us will have better second half of the season. So that was actually funny enough a talking point on the show I do, Sky Sports Fan Club, this morning. That was one of the talking points. Is it going to be like a really high points tally to stay up this season? And just our luck if it is, and we go down.
We're not ending on that.
No. Well, I'll end with if we beat Man United, we'll be on 2 points a game. So we'll end with that point.
That'd be good.
That's a good place to finish on. So that just leaves me to say thank you very much, Gavin.
Yes, thank you, mate.
Pleasure as always. And thank you very much, Tom. Really appreciate your time, mate. So thank you very much.
Always my pleasure.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And thanks again for everyone for listening. We'll have all the build-up covered this week for our trip to Manchester United, either on the Roker Report website or daily releases on How We're the Podcast. And Gav let out a little teaser the other day about our guest this week, because if you liked Phoenix Knights back in the day, you'll want to look out for our preview where we had the pleasure of speaking to young Kenny, which is of course
yes,
the brilliant Justin Moorhouse. And
has he still got his face paint on?
Oh, and he mentions that, by the way. He says he's sick of people asking him.
Brilliant.
But he was absolutely brilliant. So you should be able to listen to that in tomorrow morning, I think. So look out for that. But from us, it's bye for now.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.